Hey, this is the second video in the day, and I wanted to address the concept of why I called Jesus Yeshua, and why I just don't simply call him Jesus since everybody else knows him by that name. I'm a big proponent to understanding language, understanding the organic nature of language and how it develops and spreads. Hebrew was the language that they spoke along with Aramaic, so when they named him, he was named Yeshua, which means, in English, literal translation in English, is Joshua. God saves, or God redeems. And so, the New Testament is written primarily in Greek, and they needed to have a name for him in Greek. So they used the Greek name. I think the proper pronunciation is something like Jesus. And so it's just a slight different spelling. I think it's like I-E-A-U-S or something like that. But then over time, as the church grew and we got into more of the Latin, then the name changed again to more Latin version, which is still Jesus. It's spelled just slightly different with an I again in the beginning. And then we start wondering, well, why do we call him Jesus? I'll tell you right now, if you go to other countries in Europe, like Ukraine or any Slavic country, Greece, they're still using the word Jesus for him. That's the actual name for that in the Greek rendition of it. And we use the Latin variation of it. There was no J in English for a long time. It's like about 200 years ago or so, 250 years ago, we started utilizing the J. And even prior to that, when the King James Version was written, it was written with the I, and it was pronounced Jesus, even in English. But then we started using the J. And once we started using the J in place of the I, we started saying Jesus. So Jesus is a Latin derivation of his name. And I got in an argument with a friend. He says, well, we're not Hebrew, so why should I use Hebrew? I looked at him and said, well, you're not Latin either. You're not a Roman. You're not Italian. Why should you use Latin? Or you're not Greek. So why should you even use Greek? The foundations of what we follow is a Hebrew God. Is a God who created the Hebrews and chose that a Hebrew woman would have Yeshua as her son. So he chose this. And his name at the time was Yeshua ben Yosef. So why shouldn't we call him Yeshua? I choose to use that name. Am I going to sit there and say you're wrong for calling him Jesus? No. Or Jesus? No, I'm not going to do that at all. But I am just trying to make a case out of the idea that maybe calling him Yeshua is actually more apropos, and it's okay. So if you hear people call Jesus Yeshua, be fine with it. Don't criticize him for him. Don't think less of him. And don't think they're some kind of following some sort of weird cult because they're calling him Yeshua. Instead, understand its language, and we could spend hours talking on language and some of the mistakes that we have in understanding the Bible because we don't fully understand the language. We don't understand that when we look at a Greek word, there might be 5 different meanings we could apply to it, and that the people who translate it are just trying to find the one that's most comfortable for them, that fits what they think is being said. And when you supplement one of the other words that are there, you see that in your Bible will definitely give you the indication there's other choices there. It may make it a little different. It might make no difference at all. But the idea is to understand the language, because language is not as simple as you think it is. You're speaking English. The English speakers of America have over 1 million words in their lexicon that they could use. The average English speaker in America, when they finish high school, has roughly about 60,000 word vocabulary. Most of the time, I will admit, they don't use all 60,000. Well, most other countries, most other languages are limited between 30 to 40,000 total words. Total. There are a few that hit 60,000 total words. Ours, 1 million. So language is very complicated when you get down to like 30, 40,000 words. It gets even more complicated when the language you're studying is founded on pictographs, which is Hebrew is founded on pictographs, and then turned into an alphabet. So we have to understand the meaning and how do they make new words. And they take one word and they take a bit of another word and they put it together and they create a new word out of it, which means it has different meanings. And it's very important, I think, for us to understand that, not just to jump off the bridge and say this is the correct and absolute only meaning of that word. It is not. So therefore, I go back to it. Don't judge people who use the word Yeshua. Don't turn from them as there's something wrong with them because you, your whole life, have heard Jesus. I did too. But now I accept the term Yeshua. So I hope as we move forward, you'll understand why I'm using that word. And I'll be dealing with language more in other videos. Thank you. And have a great day.